Welcome back to Psychedelics Today. This is your host, Joe Moore, coming at you from Breckenridge, Colorado. Today on the show, we talk to a friend of mine, Philip Wolf of Cultivating Spirits and the Cannabis Wedding Expo. We get into some interesting stuff that many of you might not have heard of before. It's a interesting approach to cannabis that Philip developed, and I think you're going to dig it. So it's kind of a food-based thing about, how do we pair cannabis with food, wine, and, well, that's it, food and wine, and a celebratory atmosphere to cultivate really cool experiences. So I think there's something there. And I really had a great time talking with Philip. I've known him for over 4 years, I think, at this point. So it was great to chat with him and reconnect and learn about what's going on in the cannabis world in the U.S. And globally. So I think you're going to dig this episode. Let us know what you think. Maybe not exactly psychedelic, but we do get into some psychedelic topics, and hopefully you like it. If you want to give us some feedback, hit us up, psychedelicstoday, email@gmail.com, or use our contact form over at psychedelicstoday.com. If you want to support the show, leave us a review over on iTunes or on Facebook. We'd love it. Or just tell a friend. Tell a friend about your favorite episode and maybe have a conversation about it. We love to be the reason you had a conversation, particularly a meaningful one about psychedelics. So try it out. See what happens. Maybe talk to your grandmother or your parents or your kids about psychedelics too. You maybe use one of our episodes, maybe perhaps this one, as fodder to start that conversation. Who knows where you will end up. What else? We have shirts, cups, books for sale, and more. Pillows, shower curtains over at psychedelicstodayshop.com. Check that out. We have new art coming soon. I've been working with some artists to develop some new cool stuff, and hopefully y'all will like it. We also have classes. Check us out. Psychedelics Today put together Navigating Psychedelics, which is an incredibly detailed introductory class that features 10 master classes with experts from all over psychedelia, from Catherine McLean from Hopkins to Mitch Gomez from Dance Safe, Ashley Booth from Inner Space Integration, and other Los Angeles psychedelic nonprofits, and more. It's a really extensive list of folks that have plenty of great advice to share, and you can really level up your psychedelic education by digging in there. So check that out, psychedelicstoday.teachable.com, or you can just find the link over at psychedelicstoday.com. So check that out. We've also got on that same site a course called the DMTX Psychonaut Training. So check that out as well. It features Kyle Buller and Daniel McQueen, and it's kind of the prerequisite to get involved in the Psychonaut training that Daniel's doing to like launch his DMTX research. If you don't know what DMTX is, it's intravenous extended state DMT sessions. So they go all over the map there. Like the curriculum looks like intro to DMTX and what are the foundational practices, the medicine path integration and tracking, and the 5 awarenesses. There's various handouts there. They talk about resourcing, shadow work, trauma, and breath work on week 3. And in week 4, they talk about the timeline for the project, a review of breath work, a look at what Daniel calls trans cannabis. It's like a look at using cannabis in the way Daniel does for psychedelic sessions, and a look at integration, and then plenty of resources and handouts there. Price on that one is, I believe, $99 US. There might be some taxes depending on where you live. So maybe check that out. I think there's some previews available on there and could be of interest to some of you or many of you. And if you haven't checked out our integration journal or it's a trip journal and integration workbook, 2 different books that we're selling on our site, you might check that out. It could be a helpful resource for you if you're having a difficult time or you want to figure out how to integrate better. Those are great resources for you to dig into. So check that out. You can find all of that over at psychedelicstoday.shop.com. in those classes again over at psychedelicstoday.teachable.com, and plenty of those links over at psychedelicstoday.com. So we would also love to hear from you. Hit us up. Psychedelicstoday, email@gmail.com. We'd love to talk. And we sell coaching. I just had 2 sessions recently with some folks, and it felt really good to me. And it seems like I gave them a tremendous amount of help working out some, directional issues and foundational questions. So if you'd like to talk to me or Kyle, it's totally your pick. Just book a session on our shop page, and we'll talk. We'll dig into some stuff. So thank you all for tuning in to this episode with Philip Wolf. Enjoy. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Psychedelics. Today we have Philip Wolf here from Cultivating Spirits. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, it's so good to be here, Joe. It's such a pleasure. I've seen you going down this path for a little while now, and it's wonderful to be able to sit with you now.
It's it's interesting. I've also watched you for quite a while. I don't even know how long we've known each other. I assume 4 years or so, like on and off. So let's kind of give a quick intro, who are you and what are you doing with Cultivating Spirits?
Yeah. So, I started Cultivating Spirits up in Breckenridge, Colorado in 2014, after a long stint in the cannabis industry now. I've been in it for 9 years in the legal industry here in Colorado, from opening up dispensaries to doing grow consulting. And I was really looking for a way to tap into mainstream America. And especially in 2013, that was kind of the question for a lot of us in the cannabis industry is how do we tap into the soccer mom? It was always the question. And I started working on some ancillary businesses with a Wall Street banker who had moved out here, quote unquote, for the green rush. And, everyone was gearing up for legalization on January 1st in 2014. And one of the companies we were working on was tourism. And I felt like it was it fed into the typical stereotypes of, let's smoke as much cannabis as we can. Let's drive around and visit these places and, be in a friendly environment, if you will, of where you can consume, whether it be at a hotel or a limousine. And to me, that wasn't how to tap into the soccer mom. That just kind of fed into the stereotypical views that people had into people who consumed cannabis. Even though we all know that doctors and lawyers and executives are all consuming cannabis this whole time. But, I wanted to tap into where they could feel more open about it. And so I was at a vineyard in Barcelona 2 weeks before legalization happened in 2014. And I was sitting at this wine experience and I just had this download. I was like, wow, we want to tap into the soccer mom. We need to present it like wine. And that's a little bit more common now, but at this point in time, it wasn't really
not at all like that.
Yeah. It wasn't like that at all. And so I came back, I pitched, it wasn't Cultivating Spirits at this time. It was just this idea of offering wine style cannabis experiences to people, and my partners shot it down, and I felt such a calling to it that I walked away from equity in multiple companies and started Cultivating Spirits, which is we are the first to market culinary cannabis experience company, if you will, or the first people doing cannabis dinners, or the first people doing cannabis pairings, however you want to think of it. But we were the first company to offer that out to the actual public. And whenever I wanted to step in this realm, I didn't know exactly what Cultivating Spirits was going to be, but I knew I wanted to start this type of experience that was similar to wine. And I was like, all right, vineyard tours, wine tastings, wine pairings. And I was like, all right, grow tours, cannabis pairings. What's that about? And I was like, maybe it's a play on words, something that we can make kind of fun. And then I started studying it. I was like, wow, there's actually a science behind this, or can be a science behind it. And no one had done anything with cannabis pairings before. Hapa Sushi in Boulder came out with this mock menu in a week after legalization that got a lot of buzz. But it was just, they didn't actually do it. It was just a PR stunt, and there was no science behind it or anything. It was a play on words. And And so once I started learning about terpenes and stuff, I was like, wow, like there's actually can be a science to this. And we created these concepts of pairing terpene profiles of cannabis with flavor profiles of food for a harmonization and enhancement of flavors. And within that, I figured out that you could honestly consciously consume cannabis by identifying certain physical and aromatic attributes of it and understand how you're going to feel before you even consume the strain. And I was like, whoa, this is, like not only is there a science behind this because food has terpenes in it, but there's also a benefit of becoming a cannabis connoisseur by knowing how you're going to feel before you even consume something. And I was like, who doesn't want this? And then I was like, all right, now here's the component to tap into mainstream America. I need to make it very luxury. I need to make a fine dining setting around this to make someone see like, hey, I don't really consume cannabis, but oh yes, I want to be sitting down at that dinner table just for the aspect of the food, the wine, the cannabis sitting there. But then once I get them to sit down, then I open up their mind to a completely new way to consume and how to pay attention to your body. And we open these people up more so than they ever think that they will be. And to me, I feel like there's a shift that we're giving people like within what they're putting into their bodies, how they're feeling from that, and how to be more mindful about it, so it's not just consuming, but it really is conscious consumption.
So yeah, I'm hearing a lot. And like I guess the number one thing I'm thinking is we need to kind of define terpenes somehow for people who don't know.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm glad I can set the basis a little bit better so we don't completely lose people. So there's 3 components within cannabis that give you the type of feelings that you have. There's 3 compounds. There's your cannabinoids, which THC is a cannabinoid. So THC, CBD, CBA, CBN, what most of us are familiar with these days. And THC just gets you high. It gives you the euphoric feeling. It doesn't make you sedative. It doesn't make you energized. It just gives you this euphoric feeling that we're familiar with when consuming cannabis. There's flavonoids, which is a little lesser known compound of cannabis that a lot more studies are being done with right now. And then there's terpenes. And terpenes produce this aromas of cannabis. But when consumed and also combined with CBDs and THC, it gives you the type of mood that you're going to be in, whether it be focus, memory retention, creativity, mind energizing, uplifting, you can sedative, you can associate that with the terpenes. Now in the natural world, terpenes exist within all plants, fruits, vegetables, and they produce the aromas of the plants, flowers. And they also, they use to attract pollinators, detract predators. So they use them for the ecosystem around them, to help them thrive. And then they also do things like help fight disease within the plant and stuff like that. And plants produce different terpenes depending on what stage of life it's in, depending on what it needs. So that's why I think we're so drawn to cannabis, because we are a pollinator in a sense. And we're so attracted to the smell of cannabis. And I just always think back, 8,000 years ago to like humans wandering the earth and smelling this plant and being so attracted to it, and therefore experimenting with it and finding the benefits of it because it is so synergistic with our bodies.
I suppose I never imagined like what the first few interactions were like, or first 1,000.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that smells really weird and great. Like, what is that? Oh, I like it. Oh.
Yeah, I know, right?
And it's like, huh.
It's like, no.
It makes me wonder, like, were people just straight up eating raw cannabis and getting a beneficial effect from like THCA or something, like health wise? And I've heard stirrings of that. I don't have any data.
Yeah.
You heard anything about THCA?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like non-activated. THCA is non-activated THC essentially. So you need a flame or heat to combust it, to activate it. But there is, I think, depending on, the fats that are in their bodies can help break stuff down. I'm sure there could be some health benefit to it, but I don't really see people like, I don't see like the first 100 years of cannabis consumption, people just eating raw, wet cannabis.
Right.
I feel like
cooking had to be invented probably first, and fire access.
Yeah. Or at least maybe it's being drawn out. I mean, maybe they set it out in the sun and there's activation that can happen within that. I mean,
for sure.
Especially
in India.
Yeah, exactly. So, I have a feeling that there was some level of cultivation and curing and processing, if you will, that would have happened instead of just like picking it straight off and eating it. Cause it tastes like grass, you have to let the chlorophyll to really get out of it, where the pungent smells and terpenes are really going to come out.
Right. That's interesting. Yeah. Even like perfumes. So like some of your language there reminded me of Michael Pollan's book, Botany of Desire, which like was really about plants manipulating the pollinators and to have genetic success, and cannabis and apples being like two of the most successful examples of that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that really is interesting. And I have not read that book, and, I've heard that kind of theory before, and, I'm a very intuitive person. So more than me sitting down, reading and studying a lot of knowledge, I sit with it and, really get my opinion about it. And I feel like, I don't know. I feel like it's a good one, but
it's a lost art. Nobody does that anymore.
Yeah, exactly. We have all the knowledge. You just have to uncover it, right? But there was, if you think about it, of just animals, just life, right? Like what our goal is to reproduce and expand, right? At the base genetic level. Yes. I think we're tapping into higher levels now where, we think we can be more than that, where we're just not here to populate and, reproduce, but, take, our planet into greater places. But think about cannabis. I mean, look how obsessed we are. Look how much attention we give to it. Look how well we treat the plants. Look how it has expanded worldwide, and it's continuing to grow. Are we the livestock? Are we the workers for this plant? It's kind of fun to think about, but I try not to get too in depth about that, because I'm focused on my life and what I'm supposed to be here for. And if there's a deeper reason where I'm supposed to be, I'm connected to these plants and spreading this word, then, it is what it is.
So, now you've developed this system, you've got a lot more knowledge about terpenes and pairings of foods and wines. Like, how are people reacting?
Oh, absolutely love it. I mean, that's what's kept me going in this industry, man. There wasn't anyone looking to do a cannabis pairing dinner, especially with the demographic that we're going after. When I started this 4.5, man, it's getting close to 5 years now. And, I've really seen, and I mean, when I tell you, I mean, I've done politicians from Chicago. I've done CIOs of major hospitality companies because they want to check this out. The average person who sits down at my table is, 45 years old, executive or corporate America, not in Colorado, not in a legal state. Just to give people an idea, our kind of main offering for Cultivating Spirits is we do these 3-course cannabis pairing dinners. And, we really focus on celebratory dinners, birthday parties, bachelorette parties, because that was a way for, it was something for us to really hone in on in the marketing sense. And that's when people want to spend a little bit more money for a dinner, and so that's why we've kind of focused around that. We do have bigger dreams of, restaurants in the future once social consumption comes on board, doing bigger monetary wine festival types of events, but there's a lot of regulations that doesn't allow for social consumption use. So, we have a very legal model, but we are restricted into all the offerings we can do. And the way that we do it is perfect. I mean, I don't want to say it's perfect, but I mean, we've tinkered with it for a long time to really make this experience, we know what people like, and we've adjusted since.
That's awesome. Is it, have you had like 70+-year-olds there?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
How do old folks react?
It's funny. Old folks are some of the best clientele because, they don't have jobs anymore. They've gone through life, my grandmother's 90th birthday was 10 days ago. Grandma Billy Wolf, bless your soul. Still going strong. Love you. But they're, you kind of lose all the bullshit that that me and you are so strung up right now, like making our careers, making our families, building a foundation, like they've done it all, like they're over it and they don't really care what people think, or they don't, I guess you lose a lot of fear the older that you get. And so those, so they're great to work with because they want to be cannabis. They can be open with it. It makes their body feel good. And that's their biggest concern at that point, is your body's health. We're all concerned about that, but that's the only thing you really have to worry about at that age. And not say that's the only thing, but that's the primary focus. So they're great. They're great clientele to have. We have a lot of clientele that doesn't consume cannabis or hasn't in years, but it's a very approachable dinner for people to sit down at, because everything's done through smoking. Pairings are different than infusions, and the way that it makes you feel. Smoking goes through your blood-brain barrier. Eating edibles goes through your liver. So it's a completely different type of feeling that you have, a different type of high, if you will. And a lot of times they'll end up taking a hit, because it's, as set and setting is a big part of things whenever you're using certain substances, and it's right for them. But we're also educating. I preach one, a micro dosing or micro serving. Micro serving is a term that's starting to be used more in the cannabis industry. And to really feel the terpenes, because you'll have, a strain might have 3 to 8% terpenes and it's 32% THC these days, and so at some point you're just way outnumbering the THC consumption than the terpenes. So you just do feel more of a general feeling that you might be used to because you're just really high. So teaching about using it in this mindful way, be like, now you can use cannabis to enhance whatever you're trying to do, because how it's going to make you feel, and just take one hit, and make people feel very comfortable with that. And so we get a lot of first timers or people who haven't consumed in a long time, because their friends draw them to the table because they're big consumers. And then once they actually start sitting in with the experience, they feel very comfortable.
Yeah, it's huge. My buddy Lex Pelger, who works for Bluebird Botanicals, he says,
yeah, Bluebird's great.
I get a lot of friends that work there. His big push is for grandmas to smoke more weed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is fascinating. And
yeah,
I think there's something there. So what does a micro serving look like? It's just really small hit.
Yeah. It's one hit, if you will. A lot of people think, holding cannabis in is going to get you higher, but it's not necessarily. It's all about surface area on your lungs to allow smoke to get into your bloodstream. And once smoke goes through that pore, no more smoke's going through that pore until the exhale happens. So if you don't fully expand your lungs and you just halfway expand them, it's going to be a smaller hit as well. So that's a way, if you're trying cannabis for the first time in a long time, just barely expand your lungs, release it, and wait 15 minutes. You can always do more. It's
hard to do less.
Yeah, exactly. So, see how you feel. Smoking usually kicks in within 5 to 10 minutes, if not immediately. So 15 minutes, you're going to know how you're going to feel, like, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of, and this term micro serving has come out because they don't want like the relationship with, with Silicon Valley and microdosing with acid, and people thinking it's that same sort of thing. Even though I just think people are just too paranoid about like that affiliation or something like that. Honestly, those people who are microdosing, they're using it for an enhancement, or at least what they believe to be enhancement. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. I think it's up to the person who's doing it, and you paying attention to yourself and identifying what's working for you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, when I was I would say when I was smoking the most heavily in my life, it would be a water filtered pipe, just like very small hits, probably like, I don't know, maximum of 3 per like hour. And just be like, all right, cool. This is what I need after work. Awesome.
That's great.
Yeah.
And you're probably pretty functional.
Yeah. Yeah,
I would imagine
for sure.
doing it that. Mine starts in high school, maybe even a little earlier than that. But it was just smoke whatever the friends are smoking, however much they did. A lot of times you didn't want to say no because you wanted to act like you were on their level, or, we wanted to show each other out that we could do certain things, and, not in a mindful way at all. Absolutely not. But, here
it's
we are today.
Incredible where we are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we all walk our unique paths for certain reasons. And, luckily I had a good heart and a good mind. Although I didn't, we all learn certain things. We all have these experiences when we're younger, and we learn things certain ways. And, cannabis was a part of that learning curve for me, and honestly, I think it was used more as an escape route, more of a coolness factor, even more so than necessarily like really loving the way of being really high. Like, sure, I enjoyed that aspect of it too, but I think it was, for me, I think that's what was a big part of it as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. So the majority of your business right now is in Colorado, is that right?
Yeah, the majority of our business is in Colorado. We operate all over Colorado. We travel to you with the chef, a cannabis sommelier, serving staff, and work with local dispensaries, and we have partners all over the state of Colorado. And that's where the primary of our business is. We are working on expanding out to Las Vegas. So we've done a couple of events out there, and we just opened up Cannabition, and we did the opening VIP events for the Cannabis Museum that's on Fremont Street and Las Vegas Boulevard, which is amazing. If anyone's going out to Las Vegas, you might be headed out there at some point. And I would highly recommend to go check that out. But yeah, we're really just starting to open up to that market. So we just started getting inquiries literally like 10 days ago, our first inquiries for dinners in Las Vegas. And I think that's going to be a really big like proving ground for everything that we've worked on in our concepts, because I mean, Vegas just has the chance for an experience like that, who knows the levels it can take it to, but
exponentially more international than Colorado too, which is, for global political reasons, I think really important.
Yeah, I mean, well, the goal is to get it to Barcelona. Like, that's the goal, is to get it back to Barcelona. I see a lot of big things that we're working on, but yeah, I mean, obviously, like, Canada is heavily on our radar. It's more of just proving that we can bring this model to another market and have it be successful. And then I think once that is proven, then I have the capability of taking it to a lot of other places. But I'm taking it to these other places with a good heart. I mean, I truly think by going through this experiences, we're educating people and making better consumers. And we really, our values really stick with the basis of this plant, where this industry is shifting right now with California opening up and all the money that's flowing in. Corona just put in, the Constellations brands just put in $2.4 billion investment into Aurora up in Canada. And, I mean, once that starts happening, there's not to say that they are, a bad fish or anything like that in the pond, or, but sharks start coming in, and people are going to, people aren't coming into this industry that have consumed cannabis. People are coming into it just seeing it as a money commodity, and they're going to treat it like that. Unfortunately,
I think the number is that alcohol sales drops about 15% whenever legalization happens. So they're like, how do we hedge? Is this something we should invest in? Is there enough there?
Yeah.
I've talked to a lot of folks that are like at kind of approaching that level, but not exactly in the billions. But
well, I mean, it's pretty smart on their part, because that's what they're doing. They're hedging the bet. They're like, all right, people are leaving alcohol, then they're going to go to cannabis, then well, we might as well have stuff in the cannabis market as well. So whatever substance someone wants that's legal at this point in time, like let's hop in on that. I think cannabis is the part of alcohol sales declining, but I think new experiences for people. I think the idea of just going to bars and going to nightclubs, I feel like I'm 33 years old. And so I think, a little bit in my generation and the generations below us, I think they're looking for different types of experiences, and they're stepping away from just, those desires to go spend their weekends in that sort of capacity. All different walks of life use cannabis. And so people have certain desires and certain settings that they like to be in. So the sky's the limit. A cannabis nightclub can look any way, I've thought many times of how my restaurant is going to look. And, something that I can say is that it's important to recognize cannabis as a third layer and adjusting to that, and not just trying to have the same thing and then just bringing in cannabis. You have to address it within your procedures, within your service, within the presentation, within the flow. I mean, everything. It has to be addressed. So that's something that I can recommend, to entrepreneurs that will be coming out with social consumption lounges or nightclubs. And then you're also going to have to look at regulations too, and what is even going to be allowed, but I mean, the first places that are going to open up is going to be a coffee shop type of model. There's kind of some spaces going on in like the coffee joint in Denver and everything like that. And, but there's going to be, I can picture what mine's going to look like, and I'm going to carry it within this Cultivating Spirits brand that I've already created. And I hold a very high importance on the service and the flow and the presentation of cannabis. And there's going to be a lot of thought that goes into that. And, educational components and a craft component to that. But also amazing food. It's not all about cannabis. Like, the food takes the centerpiece of what we're doing, and that's because we all have to have food. Unless you're a really badass rishi over in India and you're in a cave and meditating, which, that's a beautiful thing. But I really, really, I really, think that it should just be, why you have to take it as a third layer, but it also just has to be an association and not necessarily like the full focus. If you're a nightclub, the focus should be music, and then cannabis is second, right?
Right.
If you have shitty music, so still keep with that same component. If you're a restaurant, the focus should be food, and then drink and cannabis. So, that's how I like to think about it. I use cannabis like I use a cup of coffee. It's a part of my day. It's not my full day. Now, talking about cannabis and doing work on cannabis companies, maybe my full day, with some yoga, but my usage of it, I treat it more like a cup of coffee.
So there's a discussion going on in, I don't know, at least in our world, like Psychedelics Today world. Is it, to you, a sensible thing to say cannabis can be psychedelic, or is that like a dangerous statement? Or how do you read it?
Well, I mean, I don't think that's a dangerous statement. I mean, there's like a psychoactive part to it, right? In a sense, some of the deepest places I've ever been has been through meditation and breath work and stuff like that, and so is that a psychedelic experience, or is that
I say
a
yes.
meditation experience, or should psychedelics be considered a meditation experience and not psychedelics? So, I don't really have a problem, but, with who I'm tapping into, I don't really use that, I'll use psychoactive and stuff like that. And I will bring up, micro dosing and, sometimes we'll speak about, what's going on up in the Bay Area, but, I don't consider it a psychedelic experience for our people.
Yeah, absolutely not at that dose level at all.
Yeah.
It sounds more like you're training them on mindfulness using these other tools almost.
Yeah, 100%. But I will say this, that I use cannabis sometimes to deepen meditation and to deepen yoga practices and certain sessions I get into. And can it bring me to a deeper place? Definitely.
You're a certified yoga teacher, right?
I am a certified yoga teacher. Thanks, Meta Yoga, Breckenridge, Colorado.
200 hour.
200 hour.
Cool.
Yeah.
You said you learned a lot.
I did. I really enjoyed my teacher training. I didn't do it to become a yoga teacher, although I have taught at studios and love teaching friends, and have a lot of ideas about cannabis yoga, but haven't embarked on that. But what I loved about my teacher training at Meta Yoga was that, and why I did it was for myself and for these tools that I can have within my everyday life. And so we were learning about the yamas and niyamas, self-control essentially. We were learning about pranayama or breath. We were learning meditation. We were mudras and mantras and, the triggers that those can give your mind in order to put your mind in different places. And it was very powerful just to have those types of tools, and so I have used cannabis to deepen some of those tools in the past. I don't always do it because I don't want it to be dependent, and I don't think any sort of dependency is a good thing ever, unless you have to have it. But yeah, I mean, at times where I felt like I needed to do that, I would do that. And so did I get in a deeper meditative space? Did I get in a deeper psychedelic space? I don't, I'm not the person who's going to put that type of label on it. Although I think there's a lot of people that will, and that's great.
Yeah. It's an interesting subject. I feel like cannabis was, how do I even want to put that? Like I spent probably a lot more time in intentional breathwork spaces before I had really intense cannabis experiences.
Yep.
That were borderline or over the line psychedelic. Like I would say my first real panic attacks were definitely cannabis based, but it was I was going overboard. I was probably drunk. It was not a good, it was a doozy.
Yeah. The spins are for me going home in high school and my parents home, oh my God. Or, oh my gosh, I have to leave. I have to go home in 30 minutes and this is how I'm feeling.
Yeah. This might not end well.
Yeah. And I mean, I'll still get anxious sometimes off of cannabis,
kind of a mirror though. It's what's happening in you getting amplified is the way I like to look at it. I don't know. What's your opinion on that?
I would say that would be correct in some, as I think of it right now, I would think about it in some circumstances it's like that, but also not, because a lot of times I'll use it to combat something like a nervousness, and then it doesn't make me more nervous. It will calm me down. So, I remember having meetings with the police chief when we've been very open about our services and this community, which you really know a lot about this Summit County community and what's happened with even our friends and, the cannabis industry and this being a family environment. But also there's completely swings and promoted the other side of from, not necessarily family environment, but, maybe an Aspen environment, if you will. But, so it's always been very important for me to, be very upfront. And speaking of Aspen, we actually did the first ever dinner that was approved by a municipality, the opening night of X Games in 2015, in Aspen, Colorado. 5 courses, 5 wines, 5 strains of cannabis. We had Congo Sanchez of Thievery Corporation DJing it and deriving beats from where the food dishes come from. Jessica Catalano, who is my favorite cannabis chef, maybe the best infusion chef there is, and Cortland Collins and Native Roots, and it was amazing. So that's something
pretty wild event.
Something
man.
I'm very proud of. I'm so proud of it.
Company was only a year and a half old at that point, or something, or 2 years old.
Not even a year and a half old. Let's see, that was January, so basically a year.
That is wild.
It was January 2015. I kind of considered we opened in February of 2014, even though I conceived it, if you will, or in December of 2013. But yeah, so anyway, I would use, once I really started being able to identify my highs, I was holy, wow, this is a pretty powerful tool to have, and so I would use something with limonene and alpha pinene. So limonene is the lemon smells that you have within cannabis, limonene, and you have alpha and beta pinene, which that's, the pine smells that you have within cannabis. And limonene will really make your mind energized, and pinene, alpha and beta pinene, will allow you to focus. So you have a golden goat, for instance, from High Country Healing, which might, if everyone asks my favorite strain, that would be it. High Country Healing's golden goat. Not everyone has the same golden goat, people, and the same strains, and we don't have to get into that dilemma, but understand your smells will allow you to have more knowledge into what you're purchasing opposed to listening to a strain name. Anyway, I won't go down that hole right now. But I would, before I'd go meet with the chief of police, I'd go take one hit of it. So it's almost like Pine Sol, like the cleaner that you have. And I knew it'd get me in the zone and I could go crush a meeting and I would do that. And so, I might've been a little nervous going to speak with the police chiefs, but here I am smoking a very high energizing strain, and it's actually bringing me more into a zone and settling me down a little bit, but I wouldn't, not in a lackadaisical way. It was just more of my mind being more focused and more sharp.
Makes a lot of sense. That's cool. And I think as people learn more about it, they'll learn that this is a really complex plant, a lot of diversity and a lot of different use cases. So is there a place people can learn more about these terpene in highs, shaping the high?
Yeah, I mean, well, there's definitely places to learn about terpenes. Leafly is always a great source to go to. They kind of were the only people who really had any information related to cannabis, but I did all my studying through essential oils. Terpenes are what make up essential oils. So if you're in the yoga world, doTERRA, Young Living, these brands, but a lot of people are becoming more aware of aromatic therapy. And so it's the same concepts, very similar concepts. So I did a lot of my studying through that. I will say that we're going to be coming up with a lot more content soon. As I try to build my businesses, I started coming from a place of fear, honestly. Like, I didn't want my concepts to release out there to all these people because I didn't have the business sense of, growing the company the right way. And, there's money going into these other companies and we've never raised money before. And so I was like afraid that, these people were going to take my concepts and then be able to grow their business faster than I. And so I held on to it was very special for me to hold on to, I was very proud of the theories that we've come up with. And so I didn't do a lot of it. I was actually Herb, which used to be Stoner's Cookbook, if you're familiar with that site. They got me to, they're like, hey, well, why don't you start writing for us about this? So why don't we write up a little essay about what cannabis pairings are? And I started diving into it. And I was 20 pages into this outline of the beta guide and pairing cannabis. And I was like, wait a minute, I can't just give this to Herb. No disrespect to Herb. It's a great source as well. And Matthew, CEO, is a great friend of mine. But I kind of checked myself and I was like, wow, this is really potent information. And I'm not ready to put this out there because I can't keep up with, companies who might take it and be able to expand faster. So, but then I started realizing about a year ago, I was coming from a place of fear. It's always been my goal and this goal's never changed. I just didn't want to give people the recipe, but this needs the culinary cannabis scene needs to grow outside of Cultivating Spirits, out of a Mason Jar Event Group, out of some of these amazing chefs that are out in California, really coming out there right now and putting their names out there. Because we need to attract more people to this space ultimately, and we just need the demographic to really grow, and because this is going to be a normal part of our culinary culture at some point in time. So to me, I want it to happen tomorrow opposed to 10 years from now, because I've been at it for almost 5 years already and I'm ready for everyone to come in. But so I'm ready to put those, all of our concepts out there and stuff. So we're already going to be blogging more on cultivatingspirits.com and really putting, and again, I really hold special the fact that, I feel like our concepts are very unique and very beneficial for people. So there's a lot to look forward, in the coming 6 months or so, about, really what certain terpenes and how they make you feel, and deeper into these conscious consumption realms, but also identification with your body. We have different makeups, different doshas, if you want to step in the Ayurvedic world, or human design, if you want to step into other worlds, or, or just, in general, a different body structure, if you want to come at it from, just a kind of a normal perspective.
The most I don't know, Western scientific materialist way is, say, you got the genome, you've got your phenotypes and the way your genes are expressing, your gut biome, there's so many things.
Yeah.
Even just on the materialist side. And then you get everything else.
Yeah.
It's you can really dial this stuff in.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And then in the yogic spiritual side, there's even references to stuff like that where it's beyond your body type. So, that can be for another time as well.
There's a lot of research to be done.
Yeah.
So before I kind of ask the closing question, have you done anything with wearables, to track Fitbit, or tracking heart rate, or any other kind of biomarkers?
No.
That'd be fascinating.
No, it could be fascinating. I'm sure there's a person who would work with that.
Yeah.
I try to disconnect myself from stuff like that, electronics, as much as possible. I really like to feel my body, and I really like to sit with things and understand if I ran enough that day, if I got to work, and to me, in my personal lifestyle, that's very important. But saying that, I mean, I think there is a place for a lot more of those studies and everything. I always kind of say that I come from like the Eastern philosophy side of like cannabis, and where it's more of through lifestyle and through our makeup and stuff like that, where, there's a lot of people who come from, the Western, the science background. Max Montrose is an amazing mind in this space with Trichome Institute. That's a great place to really learn about the science behind cannabis, and trichomes. And I mean, he goes beyond my...
Seems like a real brain.
Yeah, he is a real brain.
Him for 1 minute once.
Yeah. And well, he's a good friend of Daniel McQueen, which I know good. Daniel is a great friend of the show. Max actually introduced me to Daniel some years back. And so grateful for that.
It's an important note. You've known Daniel far longer than Kyle or I.
Yeah. I mean, I remember like 2 years ago, us, I forget how Daniel's name came up in conversation. I don't know if I brought him up to you or if you had said something. I feel like I'd said something about it, and then you had said he'd just gotten on your radar, I believe. And that shows when he wanted to come out with medicinal mindfulness and be more out in the open. And that's honestly how we connected, because he was curious of how I brought Cultivating Spirits out into the open, because we were working within the borderlines of the regulations in the cannabis. I mean, he's doing a lot of impactful work for so many people. And he's figuring out how to walk that line, because it is a little bit different. But I commend him for walking that line 100%. So, yeah.
Cool. So 2 minutes or less, how do we want to close out? Do you want to just give your websites out, or what do you want to do?
Yeah, well, I have to give a shout out to Cannabis Wedding Expo.
Yes.
It's another one of my companies that I have. We started this, we conceived it in 2015 and opened it up at the beginning of 2016, and just another way to just show mainstream America on how you can incorporate cannabis into events. And no better place than weddings. So as simple as having a cannabis friendly venue, or a hair and makeup artist, or you can smoke a joint before, to full on cannabis bar, infusion treat, cannabis bouquets, things of that. But it's just another eye opener, like, wow, whoa, that actually does work. And if we can do it at a wedding, then we could do it at all these other places.
So it's an expo for like a whole marketplace of
it's an expo.
vendors.
It's a marketplaces. We bring in a lot of up and coming companies, luxurious cannabis companies, service, and also traditional wedding. We try to, it's really important for us to tap into the traditional wedding world and show them that this is okay, because at some point, again, it's going to be beyond the cannabis industry, and cannabis is going to be associated with all these other industries outside of the direct cultivation and sale of it. And so cannabisweddingexpo.com, and we'll be doing in Denver, LA, San Francisco, and Las Vegas in early 2019, January, February, March. So please look out for that. It's a lot of fun. It's like an event as well. I guarantee, even if you're not getting married, you're gonna have a blast at it. I guarantee it. And then cultivatingspirits.com, Instagram, cultivating_spirits, Facebook, and you can check out our blogs. We have a lot of amazing articles. I've been blessed enough to be on Rolling Stone and Bloomberg and on Vice. We have a Bon Appetit out there. New York Times. I mean, all of the major, and we have all those articles on our website, or not all of them, but a lot of them.
Right.
You can read about the Aspen event. We got the front page of the Aspen Times on the Sunday. They actually held the article for 3 days and gave us the front page because, called So Dope. And so I check into those, and you can learn more about us. And then always, we can come to you, myself or some of our other cannabis sommeliers, and give you firsthand experience within booking one of our dinners. So if you have something to celebrate coming up, then please reach out to us. You can give us a call, or our number's listed on the website as well.
Yeah, just imagine how much more your boyfriend or girlfriend or grandmother will love you.
Yes.
After.
Yes. And don't be shy to ask grandma. She might surprise you. She might surprise you. So, this has been a lot of fun, man. I feel like I have a lot more to talk about, and
Always.
I'm sure that's how you leave a lot of these podcasts, but I'm very grateful that, sitting here today with you, and, hopefully I'll be invited back to the show sometime.
Absolutely.
So,
as soon as you're back. Philip Wolf, Cultivating Spirits. Thank you very much.
Appreciate you, Joe. Thanks, man.
And there you have it, everybody. Philip Wolf, Cultivating Spirits Cannabis Wedding Expo. Hope you enjoyed it. It was a great time recording with him and can't wait to do it again. He's traveling quite a bit, but I think we'll be able to sync up every few months or something, and maybe we can just chat more about other subjects. So really excited to bring him back on in the future and dig into some other stuff. He's a wealth of knowledge and has certainly done some things I have never even imagined possible, which is great. And hopefully that continues. The media coverage he's had is pretty intense too. I think Vice, Bloomberg, Forbes. He even showed up on some investment newsletter that I get emailed to me. So really fascinating. So yeah, check him out online. If you want to support the show, check out our shop, psychedelicstodayshop.com. Got plenty of really cool stuff there. Cool mugs. I drink out of these mugs every day, have for well over a year now. One of my favorite shirts that I wear just about every day. My girlfriend hates it. It is the Psychedelics Today shirt in white with the huge spore print on the chest. It's really cool. Check that one out. We've got some new art coming soon, so check out the site here and there. Maybe revisit it once in a while and see if there's something new that tickles your fancy. We've also got coaching for sale up there if you want to talk to us. Happy to just troubleshoot whatever's going on for you, and you could talk to either Kyle or I, and in the future probably others, but check it out. We'd love to chat with you there. And also check out our classes. There's always Navigating Psychedelics and the DMTX Psychonaut training, always available. So we would love to get your help keeping the lights on over here. It's kind of expensive to keep this thing going, but we are going to keep doing it despite all that. So thanks for tuning in to this episode of Philip Wolf, and would love to have you tune into the next one. Peace out. Joe Moore signing off from Breckenridge, Colorado.